I know, we got a whole new car to discuss in today's tech review, but first we need to talk about use cases. Why, you ask? Well, if you couldn't tell, that is an EV, and EVs, they're all about use cases. Specifically, do they fit in today's infrastructure? Now, if we were to be honest with each other, the answer is yes for 80% of the population, at least in this country. But if I were to go to that 80% and ask them the same question, they would say to me, well, no. It's probably about fear and human psychology, but really it falls into the heading of, don't bother me with the facts my mind is already made up. Or you could do like I did, have like an electrician come over, pay him way too much money, have him put one of those big honking things in your garage, or use the big fast charging networks that car manufacturers and governments, they work together on like a public-private co-op, but that's in just on the coasts and maybe some big cities. Or you use this. And this comes with every electric car since the dawn of electric cars, even like Baker Electrics back in the day. And this is a 110 volt trickle charging snake, which means you can charge a car like this in like 3 weeks, which means it doesn't fit in anybody's infrastructure. However, things are changing. You don't have to call your electrician. Really, what you kind of do to get one of those dryer plugs, but once you have the dryer plug, which is 220 to 240, this can go 110 or 240, which means you could charge this, the fancy one, the SL, in 7.5 hours. Now, this is optional on the S and the SV, but think about it. You could either pay the electrician $1,500 for this big honking thing, get nothing else, or pay Nissan $1,500 and you get this and some other fancy bits on your car. So the snake turns into a little bit of value. Oh, and one more thing. This has been changed. It's in a different place, so now your grandmother can charge her own electric car. Okay, let's start with the easy stuff, and that is the new 110 kilowatt AC electric motor as opposed to the 80 kilowatt in the old car. Now, it's 37% more horsepower at 147 horsepower, but that comes in at 3,282 RPM, stays flat all the way to, get this, an S2000 like 9,795 RPM. The torque is also up 26%, 236 pounds comes in at 0, which is the reason why we love driving electric cars. The transmission is a single-speed reduction gear. Then the battery. Now that's also changed. It's up from a 30 kilowatt hour battery to a 40 kilowatt hour battery. That's a 33% increase in capacity, which translates to a 40% increase in range at 150 miles. Now the actual form factor is the same, and it's still made up of 192 cells, but two things have changed. Number one, instead of 4 modules per cell, it's now 8 modules per cell. Then the actual chemistry, it's more dense, which translates to 67% more energy out of the same form factor. But wait, there's more. What about level 3 charging? Well, it takes 40 minutes to get to 80% charge. But back to that 110 to 240 snake that comes with a fancy version of this car, optional the other ones. I did some digging to see if any other EVs are on offer with a similar type system. Turns out there's only one, and it comes from a small German town named Ingolstadt. Now, you guys know I never like to tell you what you can see, which is why I haven't said much about the exterior design throughout this episode. All I'm going to say now is I like the transition to regular car design, good car design, from spaceship design for the sake of it just being different. And that transitions to the interior, and I would argue is more successful in the interior for a couple of reasons. Number one, the overall design, very pleasant place to be. Number two, the tactile feel, and that's a couple of things. Yeah, stuff like this, but also some of the things we've seen debut in other Nissans, like the buttons here we saw in the Rogue first, now here. The UX that we saw in the Maxima first, now here. But there's still some specific Leaf things here. Like the HVAC system, it's almost carbon copy of the previous Leaf, which was a good thing. The shifter, same kind of deal there. Then they kept with the tradition of the recycled materials. Not as much here. Basically, the headliner and some of that is still recycled bottles. One thing that's very odd to me is you can have any color in the interior you want as long as it's black or gray, and that is it. I find that strange. Then they finally have debuted, this is throughout Nissan, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is really the first one. And then you're going to start seeing it cascade throughout the rest of the lineup. And then back here it works. The seat is in the position where I was just sitting, so for someone my height, 6 foot, works fine. However, there is one packaging issue in going from ICE to EV, and that's this hump here. And it's not the drive shaft from like an old school 60s to 70s GM station wagon. This is the packaging of the battery. So someone who's sitting, this is now a 5-seat car, someone who's sitting here, they would have not as much legroom. Other than that, there's plenty of room back here. No armrest, but they do have this fancy blue stitching in all of them, which is a nice touch. It may have an electric propulsion system, but you and I still need to discuss driving dynamics. Up front, McPherson struts with a stabilizer bar. In the rear, torsion beam with a stabilizer bar. The brakes in the front are 11.14-inch diameter rotor. In the rear, 11.5-inch diameter rotor. The wheels on the base cars are 16 inches. On the SLs, they're 17 inches. A 0.28 coefficient of drag. The wheelbase, 106.3, so it's kind of in between a B and C segment car. The wheelbase is very similar to a Prius. The length, 176.4. The weight, 3,433 pounds for the basic S, 3,508 pounds for the full-on, full-tilt SL you are looking at. The weight distribution is 58 front, 42 in the rear. Then there's the construction, which kind of impacts that weight. The 11-12 model year Nissan LEAF, they tried to get range by putting in more exotic materials. The body panels were more aluminum there. But starting in 2013, and it transfers here, they've gone to steel as the raw material for the body panels to lower the cost. Now, all that aside, this is meant to be a practical car, so in the rear, 23.6 cubic feet of storage space with the seats up, 30 cubic feet of storage space with the seats down. Okay, so there's still one more thing you and I need to cover, and it's not so much about this derivation of LEAF, but perhaps a future derivation of LEAF. When this was debuted back in September, Nissan did confirm an additional model for the 2019 model year. Now, I know there's a lot of rumors about a 60 kilowatt-hour battery, but the only things they did confirm are three. Number one, there would be a more powerful electric motor. Number two, the range would exceed 200 miles. And number three, would stand to reason the thing's gonna be more expensive. Now, this is amongst a now new competitive landscape. When this came out in 2011, it was basically a Leaf or a Volt, and that was it. But now you've got BMWs, you've got Hyundais, Volkswagens, and then there are really the two new horsemen, which is the Chevrolet Bolt and the Tesla Model 3, which exceeds 200 miles in range for a vehicle about the same price. Put aside some of the manufacturing difficulties and the pricing of the Tesla Model 3, but that's really what's happening here. So as I'm driving this to shoot the coming full first drive review, I'm scratching my head and asking myself, was it the right thing for Nissan to introduce this one, the 150 mile range car, or should they have made a bigger splash and went with the 200 plus mile range car? I get why they did this, because from a theoretical, not really even theoretical, but from a research point of view, they've got now 6 years of user data of what people are actually doing with these things, and 150 miles exceeds what they need. So I get it, and it's that cost versus feature benefit analysis. But really, I am just one man, and this is a lot of like, you know, remember Bob Lutz? He doesn't really believe in focus groups. So I'm gonna turn this around to you guys, who are real car guys, and hopefully some people who are driving EVs, and ask you the question. Was it the right thing to go with this as the lead, or should they have gone with the higher range car with more power? And don't just tell me which one, but tell me your specific use case and what car you currently drive. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And until I see you in the full first drive review of the 2018 model year LEAF Gen 2, bis später.